Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. For anybody that's new, my name is Marlo and my content is all about living in Qatar. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you 7 essential travel tips if you are planning to come to Qatar. And these tips you can actually use if you are planning to travel anywhere else as well. But before we get into those tips, I'm starving and I have to get some food. I'm sure everybody can agree there's nothing better than comfort food. So now let's get into the 7 essential travel tips if you're planning to come to Qatar. So the first tip on my list is checking the visa requirements. So I'm going to open up qatarairways.com and on the main page I will scroll down until I see travel and entry requirements. I'm going to click on that, and once the page is done loading, here you can see find the entry or exit requirements at the top, and at the bottom visa requirements. Now I want to check the visa requirements. So my destination country is obviously going to be Qatar, citizenship is going to be South Africa, travel document type is going to be a normal passport, and my country of residence is going to be South Africa. So obviously as an example, so I'm going to click submit, and then I will be given all the information that is required when traveling to Qatar. So what I'm going to do is just minimize this. So I will get information on my passport, visa, health, and customs. So the most important thing I want to check is visa requirements. So here it says, so under visa exemptions, nationals of South Africa traveling on tourists for a maximum stay of 30 days, they must have a passport valid for a minimum of 6 months from the arrival date. There you have it. You can easily find out what are your visa requirements on the qatarairways.com website. Travel tip number 2, avoid online travel agents. Now I have a relative that was supposed to fly up to Qatar during the first week of December, and then she was supposed to return during the first week of January. So she was supposed to be here for like 30 days. Now we opted to go through Skyscanner, specifically Budget Airways, because you're saving about 10 to 15% on the cost of a flight ticket versus if you are buying it directly through the airline. Now what unfortunately happened is this whole business with Omicron, as you guys are probably aware. So her flight that was scheduled during the first week of December was rescheduled to the 15th of December. So we thought it was fine. And basically the new travel requirements were that she needs to stay in 7 days quarantine. So we had to book that through Discover Qatar. I will be talking a little bit about Discover Qatar a little bit later in this video. So just watch out. I hope you guys are going to stay until the end. On the 12th, she received another email from the agent, and this time the flight was cancelled again and it was postponed until basically the 1st of January. Also, her flight was really horrible. Initially she scheduled a flight from Port Elizabeth to Johannesburg with one stopover for 2-3 hours and then fly to Doha. So the new proposed schedule that they sent was that she was supposed to fly from Port Elizabeth, stop over in Johannesburg, fly from Johannesburg, stop over in Harare, which is Zimbabwe, stop over there for like 12 hours and then fly to Qatar. Now the biggest issue she faced in using an online travel agent, which in this case is Budget Airways through Skyscanner, is that the 2 times that they rescheduled her departure flight from South Africa, they did not reschedule the return flight. So the last proposed schedule, she was supposed to arrive in Qatar on the 2nd of January, and then she was supposed to fly out back to South Africa on the 6th of January. And if you remember, she's supposed to stay for 7 days in quarantine, so this schedule does not make sense. So she did her best to contact the travel agent and try to reschedule a return flight to South Africa, to no avail. As per the travel agent, the airline didn't allow them to reschedule the return flight. So we were put in a position, because I was assisting her from this side, to basically cancel DQ, which is the Discover Qatar quarantine hotel, and cancel a flight ticket. Now with regards to the travel agent, we got this feeling that they don't care because they will get a fee anyway if you cancel a ticket, and they will get a fee if you continue with your flight. So either way, they don't care. At least that is the impression we got. And in cancelling the flight, the airline takes about 20% of the cost of the flight. So you can imagine how much money is that, right? It's a lot because we use the online travel agent. This is one of the reasons why I would have advise against using online travel agents during this period because a lot of things can happen in regards to traveling anywhere nowadays. So you want to have total control or as much control as possible over your flight, which is an awesome segue into my next point. Tip number 3, book directly through the airline. Now there's a number of benefits that you get in booking directly with the airline, such as maybe changing your seat, selecting your meal preference. Sometimes you do get an additional weight allowance, but the most important benefit that you get is whenever the airline has to reschedule your flight and you are not happy with it, you can immediately contact the customer service without having a middleman in the way, which in my previous example was Budget Airways. If you're not happy with anything, you contact the customer care, and if the airline that you're using is worth their salt, they will obviously do their best to make you happy as their customer by adjusting or rescheduling your flight. Now these kind of benefits you don't get when you book through an online travel agent, or they will nickel and dime you to buy a lot of additional add-ons in order for you to have these benefits available. Now obviously you have to also consider that booking directly with the airline, usually the flight ticket will be a little bit more expensive. But in my experience, with everything that's happening due to Omicron, it is better to have full control over your ticket by booking directly with the airline. Travel tip number 4, check your country status. On the covid19.moph.gov.qa/travel and return policy website, all countries are basically segregated in either a green list, red list, or an exceptional red list based on how the country is managing COVID-vid, right? Now, depending on where your country falls in terms of these 3 lists, that will determine your travel requirements. Now, for South Africa, for example, I'll just open up the red list. So here South Africa is number 39 on the red list. So what I'm going to do now, all this information that in the general policy is very important that you guys need to read through directly from the Ministry of Public Health. As you can see here, the policies for those coming from green list countries, we are not there. Policies for those coming from red list countries, so this is where we are. Now Group A is citizens, GCC citizens and residents of Qatar. So let's scroll down. So under Group B, visitors to Qatar were pre-approved and on arrival visas. So here you can see the quarantine policy. So travelers who are fully vaccinated by the vaccine approved by the Ministry of Public Health or the conditionally approved vaccines. So here's information about the vaccines. So these people are subject to 2 days of quarantine. And then obviously you get a lot of information before you fly. So this is all the information before arrival and after arrival. So travelers who are not fully vaccinated, on this list, they have to stay basically in quarantine for 7 days. This is basically how you will use the covid19.moph.gov.qa website to check your country status. Guys, if you find value in my video and you would like to support the channel, a like would go a long way. And if you'd like to see similar content to this in the future, then do smash the subscribe button. Now let's move on to the 5th travel tip of coming to Qatar. Now on the Discover Qatar website, there's an easy to follow travel process infographic. So let's just check it out. So scrolling down, you can see 5 days prior to travel, you have to apply for the travel permit on etiras.gov.qa, and then after that you have to basically upload the vaccination certificate, enter details and submit. And then 72 hours before arrival you have to basically conduct a PCR test. 24 hours before, at this point you should have received basically your advance registration to enter the state of Qatar, and then you have to print a copy of the approval, keep the PCR test result and vaccination certificate ready, download the Etiras mobile app, but you don't have to activate it at this point. Now you have to get ready to travel to Qatar, and on arrival in Qatar you have to complete the immigration formalities, get a visa on arrival, ID sticker in your passport. At this point you will activate your Etiras mobile application using your passport number, and then you just download all of the details and then you can continue with your journey. Super easy to follow. I would actually suggest that you print this out and then keep a printed copy with you. This makes the whole travel requirements that we discussed prior to this, makes it a lot easier to understand, right? Let's move on. Travel tip number 6, booking a Discover Qatar quarantine hotel. Now this is obviously a step that you need to do if you are required to stay in a quarantine hotel. So on the Discover Qatar website, it's important that you book your quarantine hotel well in advance. If we take 4th of January as an example, which is today as of the recording of this video, let's see what's available. So the cheapest hotel is 3,258. Now, if you want to save a bit of money on your quarantine hotel, it's important that you book in advance. Now, if we, for example, will book on the 31st of January, so here you can actually see that we have a hotel that is 2,724 riyals. You're saving a bit of money compared to the previous one. Now obviously this is just an example. You will not book your quarantine hotel the day that you arrive in the country, because you'll need to book that in advance. But the further you book it in advance, you'll be able to get better rates basically. And also, while you're on the Discover Qatar website, it's important to also read the terms of service, because there are certain situations where you will not be able to get a full refund. So read through the terms of service as well. So last but definitely not least is the PCR test validity. Now if you're planning to travel to Qatar or any other destination in the world, most countries nowadays would require either a PCR test or a antigen test. Now for the PCR test, if you are planning to travel to Qatar, that test should not be older than 72 hours. Now it's important to keep in mind that whenever you are going to do the test prior to coming to Qatar, you need to allow at least 24, in some cases 48 hours, depending on how busy the labs are in your country of origin. You need to allow between 24 hours to 48 hours for the test to be completed, right? And then you also have to factor in the fact that if, for example, somebody is traveling from South Africa, let's say Port Elizabeth, they have to travel to Johannesburg. If you're going to have a long stop over there, and if you have another transit in another country before reaching Qatar or your destination country, you have to factor in all that travel time as well. So if you do have a stopover somewhere and your flight gets delayed, that is something that you have to account for. And you don't want to be stuck for 4 or 5 hours waiting for your next flight, and then you arrive in Qatar and then your PCR test is older than 72 hours. Then you will be denied entry here at Qatar. So it's important to keep all of those factors in mind when you are scheduling your PCR test. I would suggest that you look for a facility where the test has the shortest turnaround time. Anything less than 24 hours would be ideal, right? So that means you have more time to spend if ever your flight gets delayed for some reason. Guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching the video. And if you want to see more content, check out the link on screen.